7 World of Tanks Blitz Tips for Beginners. 1. Shoot at the rears and sides of tanks. Tanks are most heavily armored from the front. Therefore, you'll inflict more damage on tanks by shooting at the rears and sides of them, where their armor is weaker. The back of a tank is an especially good spot to aim for, as that's where the engine is. Shooting at the sides of tanks can also damage their tracks, which will slow them down. Try to get yourself in positions where you can shoot at tanks from the side or back of them. 2. Reduce your shell's angle of impact. The best time to shoot at the side of an enemy tank is when you're directly perpendicular to it, 90 degrees. A square-on shot at the side will inflict the most damage. Always try to reduce the shooting angle at a target so that it's as close to perpendicular as possible. If you fire at a tank that's turned more than 70 degrees off the ideal perpendicular trajectory, your shells will bounce off it, ricochet. To avoid ricochets, you'll need to reduce the angle of your fire so that it's less than 70 degrees off the ideal perpendicular trajectory. You can also utilize ricochets to your advantage. Side scraping is a playing tactic in which players turn their vehicles so that enemy shells hit them at more than 70 degrees to a perpendicular shot trajectory. 3. Avoid heavy tanks with light tanks. Light tanks have good speed and maneuverability, but their guns and armor protection are generally weak. So, it's usually a bad idea for a light tank to pick a fight with a heavily armored heavy tank. In the worst case scenario, you'll find that your light tank shells can't even penetrate a heavy tank. In which case, your shots will have absolutely no impact on it. When playing with a light tank, target light or medium tanks that your shells will more likely penetrate. You can tell if your shells will penetrate another tank's armor with your sniper mode targeting. The sniper mode scope highlights parts of a tank your shells can't penetrate in solid red. If a tank looks very red when you're aiming it with scope, your shells won't penetrate its armor. Heavy tanks will often be red when you target them with light ones. 4. Select same control mode. World of Tanks is a cross-platform multiplayer game that pits Windows players against those playing with mobile devices. If you prefer not to play Windows players with keyboard and mouse controls, select the same control mode option. To do so, tap Settings and Other in World of Tanks Blitz. Then you can toggle the same control mode setting on. 5. Stay close to cover or camouflage. Stay close to cover or camouflage, primarily in the form of bushes, during matches. Cover such as large rocks, buildings, and walls will protect you from enemy fire and also make it harder for the other team to spot you. Move behind your cover after firing at hostiles when your gun is reloading. Camouflage won't protect you from fire, but it will conceal your tank. Most maps include plenty of bushes that are the most obvious form of camouflage. When you're camouflaged in bushes, you can spot enemies without getting spotted. However, make sure you've got all your tank's checkpoints covered when in bushes to ensure you're truly camouflaged. 6. Focus on eliminating enemy tanks, instead of capturing flag. Teams can win World of Tanks matches by eliminating all enemy tanks or capturing a map's base flag that's within a small circle. The vast majority of World of Tanks matches are won by teams eliminating all enemy tanks. Thus, focus on eliminating tanks at the start of matches. Trying to capture the flag at the beginning of matches, when teams have an equal number of tanks, can often backfire. For starters, moving into the flag circle gives away your tank's position. You will attract at least a few enemy tanks toward you. Then you'll be a sitting duck in a small circle that usually offers little cover, which can leave you very vulnerable to enemy fire from various directions. It's better to try capturing the base flag toward the end of a match when your team is winning and outnumbers remaining hostiles. Moving onto the flag circle will usually leave remaining enemy tanks little option but to come out and try to stop a capture. Your teammates can then close in on them to finish them off. Alternatively, they can assist with a flag capture that's more likely when your team has twice as many tanks left than the enemy. 7. Don't wander off on your own. You can't win World of Tanks matches all on your own, can you? If you wander off into parts of the map on your own, without allied tanks nearby, you might become an easy lone target for 2 or more enemies to pick off. Always try to stay reasonably close to at least a few allied tanks so that you can provide support fire for them, and vice versa. With a few allied tanks nearby, you can try some flanking maneuvers, flank fire, on hostiles they're shooting at.